Have you ever been in a relationship where you felt like you were losing yourself, constantly controlled by someone else's will? What happens when the person who thrives on control suddenly realizes that grip is slipping? The truth might surprise you. It's not just about losing power. It's about the very foundation of their identity crumbling. When a narcissist realizes they can no longer control you, something profound and unsettling occurs in their psyche. It's not just a fleeting moment of frustration. They're confronted with a crisis. To understand the magnitude of this shift, it's essential to recognize that control isn't a mere desire for them. It is the very core of their existence. Their sense of self is built upon an illusion of superiority and dominance, a fragile facade that keeps them from confronting their own insecurities. But once that illusion is challenged, the entire psychological structure they've carefully constructed begins to crack. Initially, they won't accept it. The narcissist's first reaction is always denial. This isn't just something they express outwardly, it's something they fiercely believe inside. For so long, they've worked tirelessly to project an image of being untouchable, always in charge, dictating the terms of reality to everyone around them. They see themselves as the puppet masters, with the power to bend people's emotions, control perceptions, and orchestrate situations to their advantage. This identity is everything to them, and they cannot fathom that it's beginning to slip away. But when you start to break free from their grip, they don't panic right away. Instead, they rationalize. They convince themselves that you're just acting out, that this phase will pass. They tell themselves that you'll come back, crawling to them once you realize how much you need them. In their mind, this is just a temporary rebellion because, to them, no one ever truly escapes their control. No one ever dares to defy them completely. And so, they wait, expecting your return, certain that this is just a blip in the grand scheme of their dominance. Then, something changes. You stop reacting the way you used to. You no longer get pulled into the same old arguments, the guilt trips, or the emotional manipulations they throw at you. You start to stand your ground, to resist their emotional bait, and that's when they begin to feel it, their grip loosening. It's subtle at first, but for the narcissist, it's the beginning of something terrifying. The moment they feel their control slipping away, panic starts to set in. For them, losing control is not just an inconvenience, it's a threat to their very identity. Losing control over you isn't just a blow to their pride, it's an existential crisis. Their entire worldview has been built on the ability to manipulate others into validating their false sense of self. They don't have a solid, well-defined identity of their own. Instead, they rely on the reactions and emotions of those around them to construct their self-image. When you refuse to play their game, when you stop giving them the emotional fuel they need, you're doing more than just defying them. You're shattering their very existence. At this point, their mind races. How did this happen? What went wrong? They may even convince themselves that you've been influenced by someone else, that someone else has pulled you away from them. But in truth, they've underestimated the one thing they never saw coming, your ability to break free from their control. The narcissist's panic only grows from here as they desperately try to regain the power they've lost. But with each attempt, they only reveal more of their vulnerabilities. What will they do next? How far will they go to restore their crumbling facade? Let's dive deeper into the next stage of their unraveling. After the narcissist begins to feel the ground slipping beneath their feet, they can no longer deny that something has changed. They will search for someone, anyone to blame. In their mind, it couldn't possibly be that you've grown stronger, more independent. No, it must be some external influence at play. Perhaps an enemy who has poisoned you against them, or a manipulative force that's distorted your perception. The idea that you've simply gained the strength to break free on your own is unfathomable to them. They refuse to acknowledge the autonomy of others. To them, everyone is either a pawn to be controlled or a threat to their dominance. If you're no longer under their control, the only logical explanation in their warped worldview is that someone else must have intervened. This fuels their paranoia, and you'll begin to notice a distinct shift in their behavior. What once appeared as confident control starts to unravel into moments of desperation. They may shift between two extremes, one moment acting like they don't care at all. The next, they're making grand theatrical attempts to reassert their influence over you. Their desperation may even manifest in cruel, sharp words designed to wound, to make you question your worth, to see if they can still make you flinch. If they can still hurt you, in their eyes, it means they still have a foothold in your mind, still have power over you. But if you stand firm, if you meet their aggression with indifference, unmoved by their provocations, something remarkable happens. The mask starts to crack. The bravado they once wore so proudly begins to slip away, revealing something far more unsettling: fear. Despite their inflated self-image, the narcissist is terrified of being powerless, of being exposed for the fraud they truly are. They are afraid of facing themselves without the external validation they've always relied on. They need someone else to reflect back an image of control, and when you no longer play along, they are forced to confront their own insecurities. And now, the moment of truth arrives. When the narcissist fully realizes they have lost control over you, they are faced with a critical choice. They can either escalate their efforts, becoming more erratic, more aggressive, more desperate to regain their dominance, or they can retreat, disappearing from your life entirely in search of an easier target. Either way, you've won. Because once they panic, once their confidence begins to falter, the truth that they've tried so hard to hide comes to light. They were never as powerful as they appeared. Their control over you was always an illusion, a game they relied on your participation to sustain. When you step out of the role they assigned to you, when you stop engaging in their manipulations, you strip away the very foundation of their power. That is the moment of reckoning, the moment they realize they have nothing left. So now, the question remains, when that moment comes, will you be ready? Will you recognize it for what it is and stand firm, refusing to be dragged back into their game? Because once a narcissist knows they can't control you, they will do everything in their power to make you doubt yourself. But if you hold the line, if you refuse to flinch in the face of their desperation, then you've already won. The only thing left to do is walk away. Walk away without looking back, knowing that you've broken free and you are no longer under their control. As the narcissist's world crumbles, their next move will reveal just how far they are willing to go. The path forward is now yours to choose, and the key to maintaining your strength lies in how you respond to what's to come. Will you stand tall, or will their last-ditch efforts pull you back into the cycle? The journey of freedom is only just beginning. As the narcissist begins to realize they can no longer control you, their instincts shift into overdrive. The desperation to reclaim dominance becomes overwhelming. This isn't a conscious, calculated strategy. They're not sitting back and planning every move. Rather, it's an ingrained compulsion, a deep-seated need to restore the balance that once worked in their favor. Control is the foundation of their psychological makeup, and when that control is threatened, they'll do anything to regain it. They may respond with manipulation, intimidation, or in some cases, outright destruction. One of the first signs you'll notice is their attempt to rewrite the narrative. A narcissist simply cannot tolerate the idea that they've lost power over you. It disrupts their entire identity, so they immediately begin constructing an alternate version of reality, a version in which they are still the dominant force. This could take several forms. They may start portraying you as unstable, irrational, or ungrateful. They might spread rumors either subtly or overtly, suggesting that you were the one at fault all along. They will spin the story in such a way that positions them as the victim and you as the problem. If they can't control you directly, they'll try to control how others perceive you, and that too is no accident. A narcissist's power doesn't just come from manipulating you, it comes from their ability to shape the world around you. They understand, almost instinctively, that for most people, perception is reality. If they can manipulate how others see you, they can keep their control intact even without direct influence over you. If they can't control you anymore, they'll make sure that you don't emerge from the situation unscathed. They do this not just to punish you, but to reinforce their own delusions. They need to maintain the illusion of control, and if they can convince others that you're weak, broken, or at fault, they don't have to face the uncomfortable truth. They were never as powerful as they pretended to be. This is where your strength will be tested. The moment a narcissist realizes they've lost control over you, they will attempt to provoke you into reacting emotionally. They will push your buttons, try to make you lash out, or get you to defend yourself in a way that feels frantic and desperate. Why? Because as long as they can provoke a reaction, they still have some level of control over you. They can point to your emotional outburst and say, "See, I told you they were unstable." The key is whether you recognize this for what it truly is, a trap. The narcissist wants you to engage. They want you to defend yourself, to explain why you're not at fault. But the real test is stepping outside of their frame entirely. Do not engage in the argument. Do not try to explain yourself. Do not seek validation from them or from anyone else they've turned against you. Every word you say, every emotional reaction you give is fuel to their fire. The only way to truly win against a narcissist is to refuse to play their game altogether. This isn't easy. It's a battle of wills, and the narcissist will do everything they can to pull you back into the cycle. But by holding firm and refusing to engage, you take the first step toward complete freedom. The journey ahead is one of reclaiming your power, and it starts with one simple truth. You are no longer their puppet. So, what's the next step in this process of liberation? Let's explore how to maintain that strength, even when the narcissist turns up the heat. As you begin to show the narcissist that you are not what they claim you to be, their web grows tighter and the stakes become even higher. The truth, however, is simple. People who genuinely know you will never be deceived by their manipulation. They see through the narcissist's tactics and recognize the truth of who you are. But the real challenge comes when you realize that those who fall easily into the narcissist's traps were never truly on your side. It's a hard truth, but it's one that reveals the depth of the narcissist's deceit. There's something incredibly powerful about refusing to participate in someone else's delusion. When you stand firm in your own reality, when you refuse to react the way they expect, desperate, emotional, and seeking validation, you expose their power for what it really is, hollow. Their control isn't rooted in any kind of true authority or genuine strength. It's built on deception and coercion. The more you stand firm, the more their power begins to crumble, piece by piece. But here's the part that's hardest for them to accept. When they can no longer control you, they lose control of themselves. The narcissist's entire sense of self-worth depends on being able to influence and manipulate others. Without that ability, they begin to experience something close to an identity crisis. Their entire self-image shatters, and they don't know who they are without their control over you. In their desperation, they lash out. Their behavior becomes increasingly erratic as they try to provoke a response from you. They don't care if the reaction is anger, fear, sadness, or even guilt. To them, any reaction is better than nothing. Nothingness is the one thing a narcissist cannot tolerate. It's the void that threatens their very existence. So, they escalate their efforts. They alternate between cruelty and false kindness, between threats and love bombing. One moment, they may try to paint themselves as the victim, claiming you abandoned them, that you misunderstood their intentions. The next, They might resort to outright intimidation, making veiled threats, or suggesting that you'll regret cutting them off. These are just tactics to see if they can still get inside your head to trigger the emotions that once kept you trapped in their cycle of control. But here's the key. You are no longer that person. The version of you that they once controlled no longer exists, and that terrifies them more than anything else. The greatest mistake you could make right now is underestimating the lengths they will go to in order to reclaim control. This isn't just about their ego, it's about their very survival. The narcissist needs people to control, the same way a parasite needs a host. Without that psychological sustenance, they wither, and they will do anything to avoid that fate. This is why they burn bridges so spectacularly. If they can't regain power over you, they will do everything in their power to destroy whatever piece you have left. They will attempt to poison your relationships, damage your reputation, and undermine your confidence. Because if they can't own you, they want to make sure that no one else can either. They can't stand the thought of you living your life free from their control, and they'll stop at nothing to drag you back into their web. It's clear now the narcissist's survival is tied to their ability to manipulate and control. But as you stand firm, as you refuse to engage, you begin to realize that their power is only an illusion. The question now is, how do you protect your peace from their attempts to destroy it? How do you continue to rebuild, knowing that the narcissist will never stop trying to reclaim control? The answer lies in one crucial step forward. Let's explore how to maintain your strength and keep moving forward no matter what they do next. As the narcissist's control slips away, their tactics become more desperate. Their need to maintain dominance takes a darker turn, shifting from subtle manipulation to pure destruction. They can no longer tolerate the idea that they've lost control, and they'll do everything in their power to ensure you don't find peace. But you don't have to let them succeed. The antidote to their manipulation is clarity. Clarity in who you are, clarity in what is true, clarity in what you will and will not tolerate. A narcissist's greatest weapon is confusion. If they can keep you doubting yourself, if they can pull you into their emotional chaos, they maintain a kind of indirect control over you. But once you refuse to be drawn into their web, once you remain steadfast in your understanding of reality, their tactics start to unravel. And that's the moment they fear the most. It's the moment when you see them for what they truly are and walk away, unshaken, unbroken, and utterly free. When a narcissist realizes they can no longer control you, their behavior doesn't stop, it transforms. It shifts into something more desperate, more erratic, and often more destructive. This is the phase where they resort to one of their most insidious tactics, playing the victim. Now you might wonder why. Why would someone who spent so much time inflating their own importance suddenly switch roles and present themselves as the wounded, the wronged, the misunderstood? The answer is simple control. If they can't dominate you through direct manipulation, they'll attempt to do so by rewriting the story, shifting the narrative. In this new version of reality, they aren't the aggressor. They're the one who has been deeply wronged, hurt, and betrayed. Understanding this shift is crucial because it's not just about deception, it's about survival. Narcissists do not possess the internal mechanisms to accept personal failure, to acknowledge their faults, or to take genuine responsibility for their actions. To do so would unravel the fragile sense of self they've carefully constructed over time. So, when they lose control over you, they cannot view it as a reflection of their own shortcomings. They cannot admit that they've failed. Instead, they externalize the blame. They make it someone else's fault in this case. That someone is you. So, what do they do next? First, they create a new narrative. A narrative that paints you as cruel, disloyal, or even abusive. They twist the story until it suits their needs. This isn't done in isolation, though. A narcissist needs an audience, someone to validate their twisted version of events. They will go to mutual friends, family members, colleagues, anyone who will listen and begin seeding their carefully crafted half-truths and outright lies. I don't know what happened, they'll say. I gave everything and they just turned on me. This is the crux of their manipulation. By controlling the narrative, they maintain the illusion of power, even if that power is based on lies. But here's the reality. You don't have to let their false story become your truth. This is where the battle really intensifies. The narcissist's desperate need to regain control will lead them to escalate their attacks, but this is the moment where you truly start to reclaim your peace. The question is, how do you respond to their manipulation without getting sucked back into their chaos? The answer lies in understanding that their need for control is not your responsibility. Let's explore how to protect yourself and find strength in the face of their destructive tactics. As you begin to disengage from the narcissist's attempts to rewrite the narrative, you'll notice something crucial: the structure of their statements. They're always vague enough to leave room for speculation, emotionally charged enough to elicit sympathy, and strategically crafted to make you appear as the villain. This is no accident. The narcissist understands, perhaps better than most, that perception shapes reality. If they can convince enough people that they are the victim, then, in a twisted sense, they become the victim. But here's where it becomes even more dangerous. If you react, if you try to correct the record, if you defend yourself, or if you attempt to explain the truth, you're walking straight into their trap. They are counting on you to do exactly that. They need you to fight back because in doing so, you validate the drama they've created. By defending yourself, you give them more material to twist and manipulate. You provide them with more ammunition to use against you. So, what's the alternative? The alternative is to refuse to participate in their false reality. You do not defend yourself against lies that were never intended to be fair or based on truth. You do not engage in a battle that was designed from the outset to exhaust and entangle you. You do not waste your energy trying to dismantle an illusion, because an illusion that is ignored will eventually collapse under its own weight. This is where true strength lies. Walking away from a narcissist's false narrative takes immense discipline. It requires you to accept that some people will believe things about you that are not true. And yes, that is a difficult pill to swallow. But the alternative, staying locked in their game, constantly reacting to their provocations, is far worse. Because the moment you start defending yourself against their accusations, you accept their premise. You become entangled in their version of reality, and that's exactly what they want. However, here's something else to consider. The Narcissist Victim Act isn't just about controlling the narrative, it's also about testing you. They want to see if they can still make you feel guilty. They want to see if they can make you second-guess yourself, if they can make you hesitate in your decision to walk away. They will use phrases designed to trigger your empathy. I don't know what I did to deserve this, or I guess I was never good enough for you. These words are calculated. They are meant to exploit your compassion, to make you doubt yourself, and to make you feel like maybe, just maybe, you are in the wrong. But here's the truth. You are not in the wrong. These are not genuine expressions of remorse. They are strategic moves to manipulate your emotions. Do not fall for them. The real test now lies in how you respond to these tactics. Will you hold your ground and continue to walk away from the illusion, or will their manipulation drag you back in? As difficult as it may be, the key to breaking free lies in your ability to remain unaffected by their calculated emotional triggers. But how can you continue to stay strong even when the narcissist ramps up their efforts? Let's dive into the next stage of this process. As you continue to move forward, refusing to engage in the narcissist's web of control, manipulation, and distortion, something crucial happens. They can no longer extract power from you. And that, more than anything else, is what they cannot accept. The moment you refuse to participate, When you remain firm and unshaken, not rising to their provocations, the narcissist faces a crossroads. They can either escalate their efforts or disengage completely. For some, the response is to double down. They might try to provoke you in even more aggressive ways, attacking your character more viciously, or attempting to turn others against you. They will use every tool at their disposal to try and manipulate the narrative. But for others, when they realize their usual tactics are no longer effective, they will simply move on to a new target. And in that very action, you see everything you need to understand about them. A person who genuinely cared about you, who truly valued your presence, would never seek to harm you when they lost control. They wouldn't smear your name, rewrite history, or cast themselves as the victim in an effort to justify their behavior. That is not love. That is not respect. That is control masquerading as attachment. So, when you watch a narcissist slip into victim mode, when they attempt to twist the narrative and turn the tables, understand exactly what it signifies. It means you've won. It means you are free. A person who truly has power doesn't need to manipulate others into believing they are weak. And the greatest revenge you can have on a narcissist is not in your anger, not in fighting back, and certainly not in trying to prove them wrong. The greatest revenge is living your life well, unaffected, unbroken, and uninterested in their illusions. Because the moment you stop playing their game, they lose, and they know it. That's when the narcissist often resorts to one of their most destructive tactics, provocation. This is no random outburst. It's a calculated move designed to pull you back into the cycle of emotional dependency and reactive engagement. For the narcissist, control is not just about direct domination. It's about keeping you emotionally tethered to them, whether through fear, anger, or guilt. If they can no longer manipulate you with charm or self-pity, they will provoke you into responding. They need to reignite that emotional connection, even if it's through negative reactions. But what does provocation look like in this context? It can take many forms, each designed to elicit a strong emotional response from you. Sometimes, they'll insult you directly or indirectly, poking at your insecurities, attacking your character, or belittling your accomplishments. Other times, they might use subtler tactics, making passive-aggressive comments, undermining your success, or planting seeds of doubt about your worth. It's all part of the same strategy, to make you react, to pull you back into their emotional grip. At this point, the game becomes clear. The narcissist is playing their final card, trying desperately to regain control by drawing you back into their emotional chaos. The real challenge now is whether you'll rise to the bait or continue moving forward, unaffected. How do you handle these attempts at provocation without falling back into their trap? Let's explore how to maintain your strength and navigate the final phase of breaking free from their hold. As the narcissist continues to feel their grip on you slip away, they will resort to increasingly desperate tactics. One of their go-to moves is to humiliate you publicly, making subtle yet cutting remarks in front of others, ensuring that you feel the weight of their disapproval. It's not just about hurting you, it's about reminding you, in front of everyone, that they still have power over you. But the manipulation doesn't stop there. Then come the more insidious tactics, the gaslighting, the rewriting of history, and the sudden accusations meant to make you doubt your own perception of reality. But why? Why would someone go to such lengths to provoke you when you've already made it clear that you are no longer willing to be controlled? The answer lies in the narcissist's very perception of power. Unlike a well-adjusted individual who views relationships as mutual and reciprocal, a narcissist sees them as hierarchical. They must always be on top. They must always be the one dictating the terms. When they realize they no longer have that control over you, they are faced with an intolerable reality, the loss of power. And for them, this loss isn't just frustrating, it's existentially threatening. In their mind, if they are not in control, they are weak, and weakness is completely unacceptable. So when they provoke you, they aren't merely lashing out in frustration. They are making an attempt to reestablish the dynamic that once existed. If they can make you react, whether by getting you angry, defensive, or distressed, then, in their eyes, they have won. They believe that the mere fact of your reaction means they still have influence over you. To them, it's not about what you say or do in that moment. It's about the fact that you are still engaged in the battle. As long as you are reacting, they still matter. They are still relevant in your life. This is a crucial point to understand because it completely changes how you approach these situations. The natural instinct when provoked is to fight back, to defend your integrity, to set the record straight, to prove them wrong. And while that instinct is entirely human, it's exactly what the narcissist wants. Every minute you spend trying to explain yourself to them is a minute that you're not spending moving forward, away from their chaos. Every ounce of energy you devote to countering their lies is energy they have successfully extracted from you. So, what's the alternative? The alternative is not to fight, but to refuse the fight altogether. Not from a place of weakness, but from a place of strength. Because true power does not need to prove itself. When a narcissist tries to provoke you, the most powerful response is no response at all. This is not indifference born from resignation. It is indifference born from detachment. You see, their words, their actions, their attempts to get under your skin, all of these are irrelevant. The moment you stop letting them affect you, the moment you stop reacting to their provocation, you regain control over yourself and your life. The challenge now is to stay true to this approach, to remain untethered by their attempts to provoke you. But how do you maintain this strength, especially when the narcissist continues to escalate their efforts? Let's explore how to keep moving forward and stay unshaken, no matter how hard they try to pull you back into their toxic web. As you continue to resist the narcissist's attempts to provoke you, remember this crucial truth. Their power only exists if you grant it significance. This doesn't mean you should tolerate mistreatment or let them harm you. Setting boundaries is essential. If they are directly harming you, distancing yourself, or enforcing consequences is necessary for your well-being. But it does mean that their emotional provocations, their desperate attempts to get a reaction from you, should be met with a level of self-control that renders them utterly ineffective. You do not explain yourself. You do not argue. You do not defend yourself against baseless accusations. Instead, you allow them to reveal themselves. Because in the end, a narcissist who cannot provoke you is a narcissist who has lost their power. And while this is easier said than done, the reality is this. Walking away from a provocation requires immense discipline, especially when their attacks feel deeply personal. But here's the reality check. When you refuse to engage, you force the narcissist to face something they cannot tolerate. Their inability to make you react, to pull you back into their emotional chaos, is the ultimate confirmation that they no longer have control. And nothing enrages them more than realizing that they've become powerless in your eyes. At this stage, one of two things will happen. Either they will escalate their efforts, becoming more extreme, reckless, and desperate in their attempts to provoke you, or they will give up and move on to someone else. Both outcomes serve the same purpose. They confirm that you are free. Because once a narcissist realizes they can no longer extract emotional energy from you, they are left with no choice but to seek a new source to feed their insatiable need for control. And that is where the real victory lies. The moment you stop reacting, the moment you stop justifying yourself, the moment you stop giving them what they crave, you reclaim your power. And nothing terrifies a narcissist more than someone who has learned to exist beyond their reach. When they realize they can no longer control you, one of the most striking things they will attempt to do is rewrite history. This is not a trivial or accidental act. It's a deliberate, desperate effort to regain dominance over your perception of reality. For a narcissist, Control is not just about manipulating your actions in the present. It is about shaping the entire narrative of your relationship, your identity, and even your past. If they can distort your sense of history, they can still hold power over how you see yourself and your shared history. This rewriting of history isn't just a petty tactic. It's a strategy that serves their need for control. But how can you protect yourself from these distortions? How can you ensure that their attempts to reshape your reality don't succeed? The key lies in recognizing the manipulation and refusing to let their false narrative take hold. Let's dive deeper into how to reclaim and preserve your truth. As the narcissist seeks to manipulate your perception of reality, one of their most powerful tactics is to exert influence over how you see yourself and the choices you make moving forward. You see, memory is not just a static record of events. It forms the very foundation upon which we build our understanding of who we are and the relationships we have. A narcissist knows, whether consciously or unconsciously, that if they can make you doubt your own recollection of events, if they can convince you that your experiences were different than you remember, they can make you second-guess your decisions. They can make you wonder if you were too harsh, too sensitive, or too unreasonable in standing your ground. So, how do they go about this subtle yet powerful rewriting of history? One of the most common tactics they use is outright denial. They will tell you with absolute certainty that what you remember happening never actually happened. If you recall an argument where they said something cruel, they will insist they never said it. If you recall a betrayal, they'll claim you're imagining things, that your emotions have distorted the truth. And if you press them, if you stand firm and insist that you remember clearly, they will become indignant, framing themselves as the victim of your false accusations and paranoia. But if outright denial doesn't work, they shift to distortion. They will take fragments of the truth and twist them into something unrecognizable. Maybe you remember them yelling at you in a moment of rage, but now they tell you that they were only raising their voice because you were being unreasonable. Maybe you recall them withdrawing affection as a form of punishment, but now they tell you they were simply giving you space because they cared so much. They will reinterpret past events to fit their narrative, justifying their actions while vilifying yours. Then, there's the most insidious tactic of all reframing the entire relationship. They will claim that they were always the one trying to make things work, that they endured so much because of your flaws, your instability, your inability to see how much they cared. If they can convince you that you were the problem all along, then they can make you feel guilty for leaving, for setting boundaries, or for asserting yourself. They will paint themselves as the selfless martyr, enduring your irrationality, while casting you as the irrational aggressor. Their hope is that this distortion will be enough to pull you back into their control. But here is the fundamental truth. This is their manipulation, not reality. The more they twist the truth, the more they attempt to rewrite your history, the clearer it becomes that their need for control is rooted in nothing but insecurity and deceit. The true power lies in your ability to see through their lies, to hold on to your memories and your truth, and to refuse to let them distort your perception of yourself or your experiences. Recognizing the narcissist's tactics is the first step in freeing yourself from their grasp. But how do you protect your sense of self and ensure that their manipulations no longer affect you? The key lies in strengthening your boundaries and reinforcing your own reality. Let's explore how to hold firm in your truth, no matter how much they try to distort it. As you continue to navigate the narcissist's attempts to rewrite your history, remember this: you are not obligated to participate in their revisionist narrative. You do not need their permission to trust your own experiences. One of the greatest acts of defiance against a narcissist is to hold firm in your truth, to refuse to let them dictate how you interpret your own life. And this goes beyond simply remembering past conflicts accurately. It is about acknowledging that your perception is valid, that your emotions are legitimate, and that your choices to protect yourself were absolutely necessary. This is where many people falter, because when someone insists over and over that your recollection is wrong, that your emotions are misguided, or that your entire perspective is flawed, it becomes deeply unsettling. It shakes you to your core. This is exactly what the narcissist is counting on. They are counting on your self-doubt, your empathy, and your tendency to see the best in other seven when it means sacrificing your own reality. But here's the thing. Truth does not require validation from those who seek to manipulate it. You do not need their agreement to know what happened. You do not need their approval to hold on to what you know is real. The moment you stop seeking confirmation from them, the moment you stop engaging in their attempts to distort the past, is the moment you truly break free. Because once you see through the patterns, you recognize that their attempts to rewrite history aren't about truth, but about control. You gain an immense power. The power of unwavering clarity. And clarity is the one thing a narcissist cannot stand. Because clarity makes you untouchable. It makes you immune to their gaslighting, their distortions, and their manipulations. So when they try to rewrite the past, when they try to convince you that things were different than you remember, do not argue. Do not plead your case. Do not waste your energy trying to get them to admit the truth. Simply recognize what they are doing and refuse to play the game. The truth does not need their permission to exist, and neither do you. When a narcissist realizes they can no longer control you, their final move often reveals their true nature. At this stage, their tactics shift from manipulation and distortion to something more primitive: destruction. If they cannot own you, if they cannot dictate your perception, if they cannot make you doubt yourself, then they will resort to more drastic measures. What happens when their manipulation and attempts to control no longer work? How far will they go to maintain their power? Let's explore how to protect yourself during this final, dangerous phase and maintain your strength when the narcissist becomes more desperate. As the narcissist's attempts to regain control become more desperate, they will try to dismantle the very foundation of your life. They won't necessarily do this out of conscious malice, though. At times it may feel that way, but out of sheer desperation. To them, losing control over you is the same as losing control over themselves. It's an existential threat they cannot tolerate. This destruction can take many forms, but one of the most common and effective tactics is an assault on your reputation. Narcissists are deeply concerned with how others perceive them, with how they are understood by the world. And when you stop playing along with their version of reality, when you reject their control, you become a threat in their eyes. In their mind, threats must be neutralized. They will spread lies, twist facts, and create narratives designed to make you seem unstable, cruel, ungrateful, or even dangerous. They will attempt to turn mutual friends against you, positioning themselves as the victim, all to ensure that they remain in control of the story even if they have lost control of you. This tactic is particularly effective because most people don't scrutinize the dynamics of relationships too deeply. If someone appears hurt, if they insist they have been wronged, the natural response for many is to believe them. Narcissists are often skilled performers, able to shed tears on command and weave tragic tales that cast them as the innocent party. As a result, you might find yourself in a position where the people around you begin to look at you differently. You may hear whispers, feel the shift in how others treat you, and realize that the smear campaign against you has begun. And this is where many people stumble. The urge to defend yourself, to correct the record, to explain what really happened can be overwhelming. You want others to understand the truth. You want them to see through the manipulation. But here's the harsh reality. Engaging in that fight is exactly what the narcissist wants. Because as long as you are responding, as long as you are trying to counter their lies, you are still caught in their web. you are still playing the game. The more you fight back, the more you feed into the narrative they've created that you are unstable, reactive. So, what should you do instead? You let them burn themselves out. You allow them to reveal themselves over time, because truth has a way of surfacing. People who thrive on manipulation, who constantly need to control and distort reality, cannot maintain their facade forever. The cracks begin to show. Patterns emerge. And those who blindly believe their false narrative will eventually see the truth for themselves. The truth has its own power, and over time it will rise above the distortions. But how can you maintain your strength and resilience during this period when everything seems to be turning against you? The key lies in patience and understanding how to weather this storm without getting drawn back into their game. Let's explore how to stand firm and let the narcissist's manipulations expose themselves. As the narcissist's manipulation continues to unravel, those who still stand by them will either wake up to the truth or remain as enablers. But no matter the outcome, you will be free. This is a powerful realization. While they may continue to play their games, your freedom is assured. However, their attempts at destruction don't stop there. Another method they often employ is personal sabotage. If they still have any access to your life, whether it's your work, your finances, or your social circles, they will use that access to create problems for you. Maybe they'll try to discredit you professionally, planting seeds of doubt in the minds of your colleagues. Perhaps they'll interfere with your personal relationships, feeding misinformation to the people closest to you. They may even try to drag you back into legal battles, custody disputes, or anything else that will drain your time, energy, and resources. Why? Because if they can't control you directly, they'll try to control the circumstances around you, making your life so difficult that you feel trapped, isolated, and exhausted. Their ultimate goal is for you to either break down or at the very least come back to them for relief. And that's the final trap they set. Destruction is never just about punishment, it's also about reasserting dominance. If they can make you feel isolated, unsupported, and worn out, they might just get what they want, you reaching out to them once again. And if you do, they will welcome you back, not with hostility, but with open arms. They'll play the role of the understanding, forgiving figure, offering you a way out of the chaos they created. But here's the kicker. If you accept, the cycle begins anew. But here's the fundamental truth that narcissists refuse to acknowledge. Control is not power. True power comes from within. It's rooted in self-ownership, the ability to refuse to be dictated by the fears, manipulations, and distortions of others. True power is knowing who you are, standing firm in your truth, and not allowing Ennio Nino, no matter how convincing, no matter how aggressive, to rewrite your reality. When a narcissist realizes they can no longer control you and they start their campaign of destruction, the greatest act of defiance is to remain steadfast, refuse to engage. Build a life so solid, so independent of their influence, that their attempts to shake it crumble into irrelevance. The moment you stop playing their game, the moment you stop responding to their provocations, they become powerless. And that is the one thing they fear the most. So, what does it take to reach that point of true defiance? How do you build a life that stands strong, unaffected by their attempts to control and manipulate? Let's explore the steps you can take to empower yourself and protect your peace moving forward.